The fluorescent lights in the Ravenstone Industries boardroom buzzed faintly as I adjusted my notepad and slid into the corner chair, the one no one ever wanted because it faced away from the city skyline. Perfect. That seat was designed for people who weren't meant to be seen. Lena, coffee. My stepmother Victoria Hale snapped her fingers without even looking at me. And make sure it's hot this time. Yesterday was embarrassing. Of course, I replied quietly, standing and smoothing down my plain beige cardigan. At 28, I had mastered the art of disappointment. I was the dropout. The failure. The girl who left Cambridge and never became anything impressive. At least, that's how my family liked to tell the story. They never mentioned that I left because my grandfather was sick. Or that I spent 12 years learning instead of showing off. My father, Charles Hale, sat at the head of the table, tall, silver-haired, commanding. He had built Ravenstone Industries into a respected manufacturing giant, or at least maintained what his father had built. To his right lounged my half-brother Evan Hale, Rolex flashing as he scrolled through his phone. "Can you believe this?" he said with a grin. "Selling Ravenstone to Vanguard Corp for $340 million. I'm finally getting that yacht." "Focus, Evan," my father snapped. "We vote before Vanguard's executives arrive at 2. My half-sister Natalie Hale adjusted her tailored blazer. "The numbers are obvious. Dad has 35%. Mom has 8. Evan has 5. I have 4. That's 52 already. Uncle Ron and Aunt Claire give us another 12. 64% approval. Easy." I returned with the coffee. Victoria didn't thank me. "What about the remaining shares?" Uncle Ron asked. "Minor investors," my father waved it off. "If they don't respond, they abstain." "And Lena?" Aunt Claire asked softly. "Didn't your father leave her something?" Victoria laughed sharply. "Oh please. 1%. A sympathy gift." "It was 2, I said quietly. Natalie smirked. "Adorable. 2% of $340 million. That'll keep you in sweaters for life." "If the sale happens," I said. "When the sale happens," my father corrected. He raised his hand. "All in favor of selling Ravenstone Industries to Vanguard Corp?" I. The room echoed with certainty. He looked at me. "Lena, how do you vote your 2%? I met his eyes. "Against?" The mood in the Ravenstone Industries boardroom shifted the moment the clock hit exactly 2 p.m. The door opened, and Marcus Reed, my father's assistant, stepped inside. "Mr. Hale, the Vanguard Corp team has arrived." 3 people entered: Jonathan Pierce, Vanguard's CEO, followed by 2 attorneys carrying leather briefcases that looked more expensive than my car. Jonathan smiled confidently as he extended his hand. "Charles, it's good to finally close this deal," he said. "Vanguard is excited to acquire Ravenstone Industries." Handshakes circled the table. Champagne flutes appeared almost instantly, as if my stepmother had summoned them by will alone. I remained in my corner chair, invisible again. "Shall we proceed with the signatures?" one of the lawyers asked, opening his briefcase and laying out thick documents. My father reached for his pen. Then Jonathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned slightly, and stood. "Excuse me one moment," he said. "My CFO needs to confirm something." The call lasted less than a minute, but when Jonathan returned, the confidence in his face was gone. "Charles," he said slowly, "there appears to be an issue with the shareholder authorization." The room went quiet. What kind of issue? My father asked sharply. Our due diligence team reviewed the state filings again, Jonathan continued. According to the registry, Ravenstone Industries has a controlling shareholder with 81% ownership. Victoria laughed nervously. That's impossible. My husband owns 35%. That's what we believed as well, one lawyer said, already typing on his laptop. But the filings are clear. A holding entity, Horizon Holdings LLC, controls 81% of the shares. Natalie leaned forward. This has to be a clerical error. The records have been consistent for 12 years, the lawyer replied calmly. The transfer was registered 2 weeks before Arthur Hale passed away. My father's face drained of color. My father never mentioned any holding company. Who owns it? Evan demanded. Who's the registered agent? Blake and Rowe Legal Group, the lawyer said. They manage the entity under trust instructions. Uncle Ron swallowed hard. That firm handled Arthur's estate. Jonathan closed his folder. Until this ownership issue is resolved, Vanguard cannot proceed. We need clear authorization from the controlling shareholder. This is sabotage, Evan snapped. Jonathan shook his head. State records don't make mistakes like this. Marcus returned moments later, pale. I spoke with Blake and Rowe. Horizon Holdings is valid, and the controlling party is, in this building. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Somewhere behind the champagne glasses and designer suits, I quietly closed my notebook. The deal wasn't dead yet. But it was bleeding. The silence in the Ravenstone Industries boardroom stretched unbearably long, after Marcus's words settled into the air. The controlling party is, in this building. Everyone started talking at once. That makes no sense, Uncle Ron said. It has to be Charles, Natalie insisted. This is some kind of legal trick, Victoria snapped. My father stood abruptly. Get them on the phone. Now? Whoever controls this so-called holding company. Marcus nodded and stepped back into the hallway, already dialing. Across the table, Evan's confidence had begun to crack. This is ridiculous. We are hours away from a $340 million deal, and suddenly a ghost shareholder appears. Jonathan Pierce rose from his chair. Until this is resolved, Vanguard will pause all acquisition steps. No, my father said quickly. Please, this can be cleared up. Jonathan shook his head. Without clear authority, our lawyers won't allow it. The Vanguard team exited, leaving behind a room full of disbelief. The moment the door shut, chaos erupted. This is your fault, Victoria hissed at my father. You should have checked the records years ago, Natalie added. Evan slammed his hand on the table. Call the lawyers back. Demand answers. Before anyone could move, my father's phone rang. He answered. Listened. Went pale again. That was First Continental Bank, he said quietly. They are calling in the bridge loan. Victoria froze. What loan? The $42 million we borrowed for expansion, he said. They are demanding full repayment within 30 days. That's impossible. Natalie said. We were paying that off with the Vanguard money. The bank reviewed the ownership filings, my father continued hollowly. They say the controlling shareholder could demand restructuring. They are protecting themselves. The room exploded with panic. I stood up calmly, gathering my notebook. Where do you think you're going? Victoria snapped. We are in a crisis. I need to make a call, I said. Evan scoffed. You don't understand business. This affects you too. I understand perfectly, I replied. I walked down the hall to the small conference room my grandfather used to call his thinking room. I closed the door and dialed a number I knew by heart. Blake and Rowe Legal Group. Ms. Rowe speaking. Hello, Margaret. It's Lena Hale. There was a pause. Then warmth in her voice. I was wondering when you'd call. I assume the Vanguard deal didn't go as planned. They've discovered Horizon Holdings, I said. As expected, she replied. Your grandfather wanted you to see how they'd behave before you stepped forward. I stared at my reflection in the glass wall. I've seen enough, I said. Then we proceed, Margaret replied. Are you ready to reveal yourself as the controlling shareholder? I took a breath. I've been ready for 12 years. When I returned to the Ravenstone Industries boardroom, the chaos had only intensified. My father was pacing near the windows, arguing with someone from the bank. Evan and Natalie were locked in a furious debate about whose idea the expansion loan had been. Victoria sat rigid in her chair, staring at nothing, her champagne untouched. No one noticed me at first. I took my seat in the corner and opened my phone. An email from Margaret Rowe had already arrived. Attached were the documents I had been waiting 12 years to make public. Lena, my father barked, finally seeing me. This is not the time to scroll on your phone. We are trying to save the company. I am too, I said quietly. He froze. What? I stood and walked to the head of the table, connecting my phone to the large display screen. The first document appeared, official state filings, stamped and verified. I am the sole managing member of Horizon Holdings LLC, I said calmly. And Horizon Holdings owns 81% of Ravenstone Industries. The room went dead silent. Evan laughed sharply. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I clicked to the next document. Trust agreements. Share transfer records. Dates. Signatures. My grandfather spent 10 years quietly buying back shares, I continued. From retired employees. Early investors. Anyone willing to sell. 2 weeks before he died, he transferred everything into Horizon Holdings. Natalie's voice trembled. Why would he give it to you? He didn't give it to me, I said. He prepared me for it. My father sank into his chair. You dropped out of Cambridge. I left because Grandpa Arthur was dying, I said evenly. He needed help and time. While you were busy expanding and planning your exit, he was teaching me how this company actually worked. I changed the slide. 12 years of financial reports. Market analyses. Acquisition failures. Employee turnover. I studied every mistake and every success. Victoria scoffed weakly. You work in a library. A corporate and technology archive, I corrected. Where I studied how companies collapse when leadership values money over people. Evan swallowed. You knew about the bridge loan. I knew everything, I said. Because as controlling shareholder, I was entitled to every report. I knew the South American expansion was bleeding cash. I knew you planned to use Vanguard's money to cover it. My father stared at the screen. You planned this? No, I said softly. I prepared. I looked around the table, meeting each of their eyes. For 12 years, you ignored me. Dismissed me. Let me sit in corners and pour coffee. I closed my laptop. And in all that time, you never once asked what I was learning. The silence after my words was heavy, but it didn't last. This is insane, Natalie said, though her voice lacked the confidence it once had. Even if what you're saying is true, the Vanguard deal solves everything. The loan, the pressure, all of it. No, I replied calmly. The deal creates the problem. I tapped my phone and a new document appeared on the screen, a detailed valuation report, pages of charts and numbers filling the room. I commissioned an independent valuation 6 months ago, I said. When I heard rumors you were quietly courting buyers. My father leaned forward despite himself. Ravenstone Industries is worth at least $460 million, I continued. Conservatively. With the right strategic partner, it could reach $520 million. Evan's face tightened. That's impossible. It isn't, Uncle Ron said quietly, already scanning the figures. The patent portfolio alone justifies it. I nodded. Vanguard offered $340 million because they saw desperation. A bridge loan coming due. A family eager to cash out. My father's voice cracked. You're saying I almost gave away $120 million. Yes, I said. At minimum. Victoria stood abruptly. So what? You'd rather let the company collapse than sell. The company isn't collapsing, I said evenly. It's being mismanaged. I pulled up another file. I'm authorizing an emergency dividend from reserve capital, I explained. It will be tight, but it covers the $42 million bridge loan and keeps operations stable. Natalie stared. You can't just do that. I can, I replied. I'm the controlling shareholder. My father exhaled slowly, as if the weight of 12 years had finally landed on his shoulders. You've been negotiating behind our backs. I've been protecting the company, I corrected. The boardroom phone rang. My father answered automatically. Ravenstone Industries, he said. A woman's voice filled the room. This is Elaine Foster from North Star Equity. We understand Ravenstone may be exploring strategic options. My father's eyes snapped to me. I've spoken with 3 potential buyers, I said calmly. All between $450 and $480 million. Natalie whispered, You've been planning to sell. Planning, I said, is different from rushing. I leaned toward the phone. Ms. Foster, thank you for your interest. Ravenstone is not pursuing acquisition at this time. The call ended. Evan shook his head in disbelief. So you're really doing this? Killing the deal. I'm preventing a loss, I said quietly. And stopping Grandpa Arthur's life's work from being traded for panic money. The truth settled like a slow-burning fire. This sale had never been a victory. It had been a mistake waiting to happen. The boardroom felt smaller somehow, as if my presence alone had shifted the air. I stood at the head of the table, the document still projected on the screen, and faced my family. Effective immediately, I said, my voice steady, I am exercising my authority as controlling shareholder to restructure Ravenstone Industries. Certain actions will be taken to ensure the company survives and thrives. Evan's face twisted in disbelief. You can't just, I can, I interrupted calmly. And I will. First, I continued, Evan, you are removed as head of business development. The South American expansion lost $18 million in 8 months. That division will be under new leadership. You can't, he shouted, standing abruptly. I can and I am, I repeated. His face went pale. Second, I said, turning to Natalie, the marketing budget will be cut by 40%. Spending $200,000 per quarter on brand campaigns with zero measurable return is unacceptable. We are refocusing on digital strategies that generate real ROI. Natalie's face flushed crimson. Those campaigns are industry standard. They are industry waste, I said. Victoria's voice shook as she stood. And what about me? The consulting fees. Terminated immediately, I said, meeting her gaze. $15,000 a month for 4 meetings in 2 years is no longer justifiable. My father sank back into his chair, staring at me as though I'd grown into someone he barely recognized. Charles Hale, I said, you remain CEO. But your compensation will now reflect company performance rather than personal draws. Base salary $280,000, with performance bonuses instead of the $650,000 you've been taking. He whispered, barely audible, this is still my company. I built this, my father built this. There's a difference between management and ownership, I said firmly. Grandpa Arthur built this company from a garage. You inherited it, maintained it, but always planned your exit. Ownership is stewardship, not exploitation. Uncle Ron cleared his throat. And what about our shares? You remain minority investors, I said. Dividends unchanged. You may stay involved or step back. The days of treating Ravenstone as a family piggy bank are over. I disconnected my phone from the display and gathered my notes. I will be in Grandpa Arthur's old office starting Monday, I added. Operational management begins immediately. Derek, Natalie, HR will contact you about your new roles. Patricia's voice trembled. You're demoting us. I am right-sizing roles to actual contributions, I said firmly. Work with me or step aside. For the first time that day, the room went quiet. The weight of responsibility pressed on everyone, but no one could deny that change had arrived. I looked at my family, at the empire they had tried to divide, and knew one thing: power without vision is meaningless. Ravenstone Industries would survive, because I was no longer invisible. After the meeting, I walked down the quiet hallway toward Grandpa Arthur's office, my grandfather's old sanctuary. The door, long locked since his passing, swung open easily with the key I had always carried. Inside, everything was exactly as he had left it: the worn leather chair, stacks of books on business strategy, distribution, and leadership, and the small plaque on the wall. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. I set my phone down and opened the sealed envelope bearing my name. Lena, if you're reading this, you've reached 28 and claimed your inheritance. I hope I taught you enough. Your father is a good man, but he mistakes money for success and status for achievement. Your stepmother and siblings see the company as a resource to extract, not a legacy to protect. You understood even as a child that building something matters more than selling it. You cared about employees, not just earnings. You saw the company as a living entity, not a commodity. The shares are yours because you will protect what I built. Stand firm, trust your preparation, and remember that real leadership is about making the right choices, even when hard. Build something that matters. I folded the letter and placed it in the desk drawer. Looking out the office window, I saw the manufacturing floor, bustling with 347 employees, people with families, dreams, lives that depended on Ravenstone Industries. Just hours ago, their jobs had been at risk of being sold off in a rushed deal. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages poured in from employees, managers, and allies. Thank you for stepping up. We finally have leadership that cares. Margaret Rowe confirmed the legal documentation. I was now officially the controlling shareholder and executive chairperson. I exhaled, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto my shoulders like a familiar coat. For 12 years, I had watched, listened, and prepared. I had learned how my family would act when they believed they controlled everything. I had studied financials, acquisitions, employee retention, and corporate strategy. I had learned the mistakes that could have destroyed the company, and now, I had the authority to correct them. For the first time that day, I smiled freely, letting the relief and determination sink in. The Target cardigan I wore felt symbolic, a quiet armor in a room of designer suits and entitlement. My grandfather's legacy wasn't just money or a company, it was vision, resilience, and responsibility. And now, it was mine to protect. I touched the plaque on the wall. Today was the second best time. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, sitting in Grandpa Arthur's chair, overlooking the floor where it all started, I understood what he had always known: it was never about the money. It was about building something that mattered. And this time, I would make sure no one, no family, no corporate predator, ever forgot that again. The lights of Ravenstone Industries glowed in the darkness, and somewhere in that light, I could feel Grandpa Arthur smiling. "Well done, Lena. Now, show them what you're truly capable of."